Demon continued, "The man who has complete freedom in changing between the hard and the soft will have no obstructions in his actions and responses. This is not just in swordsmanship alone. Even in learning, if a man studies and grasps this complete freedom in changing between the hard and the soft in Qi, he will be able to manifest the mysterious function of the mind. The mysterious function of the essence of the mind leaves no traces and cannot be explained. Thus, in swordsmanship, you develop yourself by means of Qi and know how to manifest the essence of the mind. In learning, you develop yourself by means of the mind and know the mysterious function of the metamorphosis of Qi. Nevertheless, when you only know this in terms of principle within your consciousness and do not cultivate it and grasp it with your body, the mind knows Qi only by hearsay and will be unable to perform its function. A swordsman may cultivate his Qi, but if he only develops it in terms of the practical application of swordsmanship, the spirit of learning in his mind will be only one-directional, and that cultivation will not extend to his daily activities. The mind is fundamentally one with Qi. If you test this out for yourself and grasp the gist of it, you should be able to perform appropriately with improvement, even though your training is not yet mature." The demon spoke further. "For all the schools of swordsmanship, when it comes to the deepest principle, there is only one. It is simply that each of the various styles leads out from the door thought to be good by the founder who trained and cultivated himself, putting his entire being into it. But there are many who love the landscape along the way and who live in that landscape, thinking it to be the truth. Because of this, you see the many branching styles fighting amongst themselves over what is right and wrong. But the fundamental principle is not something that can be fought about in terms of what is right and wrong. The landscape along the way is nothing more than what is in your own consciousness. There are not two or three great fundamentals. When you make divisions, there is good and evil, perversion and propriety, hard and soft, and long and short. But you will never cease to argue on the ramifications of branches and shoots. It is foolish to think that another person doesn't know what you know. If you have spiritual clarity, another person will have spiritual clarity as well. How could you be the only knowledgeable one while everyone else under heaven is a fool? Thus, there is nothing that is hidden, and it is just like this in learning. For the disciples of Lao Tzu, the Buddha, Chuang Tzu, Ye Tzu, Chao Fu, and Xu Yu, they were one in seeing the essence of mind in selflessness and absence of desire. Thus, they had not a hair's breadth of selfish thought in their heads to encumber them. It was simply that the landscape they saw was different, and so in their separation their schools were different. The way of the sages crowns itself with heaven and places its feet upon the earth, and so does not leave the mountains and rivers or the solid ground behind. It takes interest in knowing the foolishness or incompetence of the common husband and wife, and will enact them out as well. There is no one under heaven not gifted with humanity and righteousness, and no one to vilify for their lack of filial piety, obedience to elders, loyalty, or good faith. Even the disciples of the Buddha from India receive the blessings of the sages and are bathed in their humanity and righteousness. This is not in a place that can be reached by the landscapes of the different schools, and that is because you see it by looking down from the great foundation of heaven and earth and the 10,000 things. The disciples of the different schools are all just different factions of the sages. They are unable to turn their backs on the great way. One of the group asked, "Purity and muddiness are yin and yang. Why should we only employ purity and avoid muddiness?" The demon replied, "There are points when you will use muddiness as well, although in swordsmanship, celerity is favored." Celerity? I think that's what it says. I have to look that word up. You cannot do without yin and yang. It is simply that you use clarity and avoid the weight of muddiness. In drying things, you use fire. You do not use water. It is just that each has its own use. The mind's clarity or dullness is again nothing more than the clarity or muddiness of qi. Clarity of qi shelters the spiritual awakening of self-nature. Matter is of itself intelligent. The essence of the mind is fundamentally mysterious and omniscient. It is simply that when muddy qi covers the mind's spiritual clarity, foolishness, stupidity, and dull-wittedness are born. Something that is confused or contrary to reason we call foolishness. The stagnant and slow we call dull-witted. Muddy qi is extraordinarily heavy. We are pulled back by its sediment. Our thoughts become entrenched, and we are confused and lost in its darkness. We are unable to set aside our thinking. We are unable to become settled ourselves, nor are we able to follow others. Always perplexed, we are unable to stop. This is called stupidity. While we say that the character of the common man has infinite variety, it is all just a matter of the muddiness of his qi, how shallow or deep, how thick or thin. The mind is the soul of qi, or even the soul of qi. This is not to say that where this qi exists, there is no soul. Read that again. The mind is the soul of qi. This is not to say that where this qi exists, there is no soul. If there is no qi, there is no soul. Again, this is like a person riding in a boat crossing over the water. When the wind is violent and the waves rough, the boat follows the wind and is pulled by the waves. No one knows where it's going to go, and the people inside the boat are uneasy. The phenomenon of muddy qi moving in confusion and the mind not being at peace is just like this. Just like this. When the wind stops and the waves die down, they return to their original state, and the people in the boat are able to feel at ease. Man creates perversity in his mind and puts his body in danger. This is nothing but the confused action of muddy qi. Its foundation is the typhoon that blows out of the cave of desire. Desire itself is an inclination of muddy qi. When an eccentric person has strong emotions and passions, the yin qi will congeal and strengthen. Someone whose mind is agitated and without self-confidence will lack the foundation of yang qi. An apprehensive person will starve his qi and his body will not be replete. A person unable to fix his mind will have weak qi and will be unsettled. He will also be close to stupidity. These are all maladies of muddy qi. Now, a person who is deliberate and quick of mind will integrate yin and yang and will lack nothing. A man whose intelligence is discerning but whose activities are not deliberate will have a dominant, clear yang qi, but the vitality of his yin will be weak. The man whose activity is deliberate but who lacks discerning intelligence will have a dominant yin vitality, but his clear yang qi will be weak. For that contained by the yang within the yin, or the yin within the yang, one could never come to an end of discussing excess or deficiency, the shallow and the deep, thick and the thin, and or all the other innumerable varieties, or variables, all the other innumerable variables. Right. When you conjecture about the varieties or imagine the details, none are excluded from yin and yang, clarity and muddiness, from the vastness of heaven and earth at the top to tiny beings like lice and fleas below. If they are not replete with the qi of yin and yang, they will be unable to perform the functions of their forms. At this time, I've discussed only the gist of this matter.